WADR, promoting dialogue.
Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. Welcome to NEWSLINK. Here are the top stories. Civicus monitor adds Senegal to its watch list of countries with shrinking civic space and growing risk violations.
We are looking at the frequency of deprivation of rights of Senegalese. We've observed how journalists have been locked up in previous months, and these are all incidents that do not really give a positive appreciation of the civic space in the country lately.
Nigerian military leader General Chani creates an anti-graft agency to fight corruption in the country. Guinea's transitional president Doumbouya denounces Western democracy amid wave of coups in the continent. And the Gambian vice president Mohamed Jallow hails the nation's democratic journey at the UN General Assembly but calls for migrants' protection.
The Gambia has committed itself to the consolidation of democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. Good governance, accountability, and institutional reforms are progressively taking root in our society. We have also instituted transitional justice mechanisms that have yielded substantial results.
Stay with us for details of these stories and more.
Here is Tawfiq Abdul Nasser with NEWSLINK.
Many thanks for joining us. Thank you and a warm welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Liberia and Ghana. We begin in Senegal with a human rights situation as Civicus adds the country to its monitor watch list. The research tool tracking civic spaces observed that in recent months, basic rights to assembly and expression have come under serious threats in Senegal as authorities target dissenting voices ahead of presidential elections in February 2024. The Civicus Monitor Watch List, released to coincide with the 54th session of the UN Human Rights Council between 11 September to 13 October, highlights 5 countries at risk of a sharp downturn in civil rights and freedoms. Abdullahi Hassan reports.
The Civicus Monitor currently rates Senegal's civic space as obstructed as the country's campaign season has seen a sharp deterioration of rights. Civicus hailed Senegal's long example of relative stability and democracy in a volatile region, which it said is threatened by the current administration's persistent and heavy-handed crackdown on opposition protests and dissenting voices. James Cheik Fomonjoy is a researcher with the West Africa Civil Society Institute, WASI, and a contributor to the report.
We are looking at, the frequency of deprivation of rights of Senegalese, notably Ousmane Sonko, his party's ability to exercise their political rights. We've observed how journalists have been locked up in previous months, and these are all incidents or actions that do not really give a positive appreciation of the civic space in the country lately.
The report warns that the government's repressive behavior is particularly worrisome given the recent spate of coups in West and Central Africa, where the new juntas have cited authoritarian behavior as a justification for seizing power. Jim Cheik Fomonjo urges immediate intervention by the state to reverse this trend.
I think the first thing is to revisit the rule of law. The judiciary should really fold their sleeves and take, critical steps to ensure that, the laws of the land are respected. Respected first by state institutions, the police. That is really the first step. Then we have civil society actors. It is important that we should continue to raise or to ring the alarm bell.
In addition to Senegal, the latest watch list includes Bangladesh, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Ecuador, and United Arab Emirates UAE.
Abdullahi Hassan reporting there. In Niger, the National Council for the Safeguard of the Homeland, CNSP, has announced the creation of an anti-graft agency to fight against corruption. The information was communicated in a press release on the state media. This commission will, among other tasks, trace and seize public properties and funds illegally acquired by officials of the former regime of ousted President Mohamed Bazoum. Matisi reports.
The main task of this commission is to combat embezzlement but also to recover illicitly acquired money. The ruling military wants to use the commission to combat financial and fiscal crime to clean up the state coffers. The general public is, however, calling for total independence in the operation of this institution. Aliou Oumarou is president of the Popular Movement for the Fatherland.
The
new structure that has just been put in place by the CNSP will play its role, but to do this, we would like it not be linked to the CNSP, whether it is magistrates or independent officers who will lead it.
For Nigerian economist Soli Abdullahi, the creation of this institution will make it possible to recover funds to meet certain sovereign expenditure requirements, given the difficult economic situation in Niger.
Today, we are in a situation where we have said that we have the closure of borders. We have the state freezes, so the state has no resources. The few internal resources that the state mobilizes do not allow it to execute its duties. So that's a source of money that the state can have, because I know that we will mobilize fresh money.
In recent days, several dignitaries of the deposed regime have been arrested, including former Interior Minister Hamadou Adamu Souley, former Minister of Petroleum Resources Maman Isani Issoufou, son of former President Mamadou Issoufou, and former Finance Minister Hamed Djidoud, among others.
Matisi with that report. Now, Guinea's transitional president, Mamadi Doumbouya, has said the Western model of democracy does not work for Africa, as evidenced by the recent wave of coups. Addressing the 78th UN General Assembly on Thursday, Doumbouya reiterated that if coups have multiplied in Africa in recent years, it's because there are very deep-rooted reasons, and that to deal with the challenge, tackling the root causes is paramount. However, the junta leader's speech has sparked mixed reactions and reviews by socio-political players. Emirates has more in this report by Conakry correspondent Cherno Alpha Ibrahim Abaude.
On the podium of the United Nations, Colonel Doumbouya gave reasons for his overthrow of former President Alpha Condé in September of 2021.
I am one of those who decided one morning to take full responsibility and avoid complete chaos in our country. An insurrectional situation with no political force. All were completely neutralized at the time, and no one had the courage nor the means to put an end to the horrible living conditions.
In his first appearance at the United Nations General Assembly, the head of Guinea's junta criticized the Western model of democracy imposed on Africans. He called for change. In Conakry, his speech was far from being unanimously approved. Although some welcomed the form and content of the message, others felt that Mamadi Doumbouya was not convincing. Oye Bovogui and Rafiu Sow are respectively Secretary General of the PDG-RDA party and President of the PRP party.
It is a speech that is full of sense and engagement so that Africa and Guinea can reaffirm their position. We see this in a number of passages when they reaffirm their position of non-alignment of Guinea. What is needed in reality is to leave to the Africans an African model and allow them to choose what they wish so that Africa can demark itself in the concert of nations. This piece disappoints me a lot because it does not only cause problems in Guinea. Today, the situation is worse than during Alpha Condé. Simply, what we remember makes us clearly understand that he wants another form of democracy. That means he wants to confiscate power. He wants to eternize himself. He wants to make his democracy in his own way. And that will make him understand it's not possible. It is not a question, and we will not accept it.
After his speech, Colonel Doumbouya had to endure the cries of discontent from the Guineans who gathered in front of the United Nations headquarters in New York.
Imoradet with that report by Conakry correspondent Cherno Alpha Ibrahim Abalde.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. NEWSLINK continues.
The Gambian government says it has made significant progress in keeping with democratic principles and values since the country transitioned in 2017. Education, health, justice, and the protection of rights have remained critical areas of focus for the current administration. But despite the successes in the Gambia, Dr. Mohamed Jallow, Gambia's vice president, said his government shares the concern and suffering of the population within the sub-region and beyond. Migration, a surging crisis from the Gambia and neighboring countries, made it on Jallow's presentation at the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York.
Since our political transition in 2017, the Gambia has committed itself to the consolidation of democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. Good governance, accountability, and institutional reforms are progressively taking root in our society. We have also instituted transitional justice mechanisms that have yielded substantial results, and we are fully committed to implementing the recommendations of the Truth, Reconciliation, and Reparation Commissions set up in 2018. West Africa is facing serious challenges in connection with development, democratic governance, the rule of law, peace, and security. As we grapple with these regional challenges, let me assure you that in the Gambia, we are truly committed to nurturing our young democracy, institutional building, protecting and promoting fundamental rights and freedoms, as well as women and youth empowerment. We are now enjoying the dividends of democracy, and we believe it is the best form of governance for our people. The maltreatment of migrants around the world is a matter of serious concern to my delegation. Migrants are human beings with human rights, and they deserve to be treated humanly. We are appalled by the cruel and degrading treatment meted out to migrants at certain borders in Africa and beyond. We call on the United Nations to investigate these incidents and crimes committed against migrants with a view to protecting them and their families. Criminalizing migration or treating migrants as criminals is unacceptable. Let us open legal pathways for migration and the regularization of the status of migrants in line with our international commitments, including those under the Global Compact on Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration.
Gambia's Vice President, Dr. Mohamed Jallow, speaking there. Ghana's Electoral Commission says over 300,000 new voters have registered as voters ahead of the 2024 elections. On 12 September, the electoral management body kick-started a limited voter registration exercise at its district offices across the country. The EC has targeted to register at least 1.3 million eligible voters based on its projection that such a number might have attained 18 years since the last registration exercise in 2020. From Accra, WADR's Atiwin Mbilolosin reports.
With 11 days to the end of the registration process on October 2, only 23% of the expected number of the Electoral Commission has registered this far. The exercise has been fraught with many challenges, including a breakdown of machines and power fluctuation, which has led to the EC allowing offline registration. Here are some first-time voters and their parents who share their experiences with the media.
Oh, I came here since dawn. We were here, we were waiting. There was a lot of challenge here, but I was able to conquer it, so I had my ID card now.
I will not allow my son or my daughter to cross this road to go and do voters ID card. So we want the government to come to our aid and help us.
Now we beg you. We can't go to the battle because of river. We don't fear river. So people will die. People will die too much. We won't go there. We beg you. Give the team all the team machines to come to protect the children to do everything.
In a media briefing to address these concerns, Madam Jean Mensah, the chair of the Electoral Commission of Ghana, said the commission is doing its best to register all eligible voters and also refuted allegations of being in bed with the governing party to disenfranchise some voters in their stronghold.
That as a commission, we are on the ground and working around the clock to ensure that every eligible voter who is eligible to register does. We have heard of allegations from various quarters that the commission is disenfranchising eligible voters. This is false. It is not in our interest as a commission to disenfranchise any eligible voter.
Reporting for NEWSLINK on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Atiewin Imbila Lawson in Accra.
You're listening to NEWSLINK on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM, Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Civicus Monitor adds Senegal to its watch list of countries with shrinking civic spaces and growing rights violations. Nigerian military leader General Chani creates an anti-graft agency to fight corruption in the country. Guinea's transitional president Doumbouya denounces Western democracy amid wave of coups in the continent. And the Gambian Vice President Mohamed Jallow hails the nation's democratic journey at the UN General Assembly but calls for migrants' protection. Still ahead is the guest interview and sports update. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
And now, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPC Limited, has become the first state-owned oil company in the world to join the United Nations Global Compact. The signing of the letter of commitment took place at the United Nations General Assembly in New York, with the CEO of NNPC Limited, Malam Melik Kari, expressing Nigeria's commitment to a just energy transition. WADL's Usman Umar in Abuja tells us more.
By joining the UN Global Compact, NNPC Limited supports the 10 principles on human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption. The executive director of the UN Global Contact Network in Nigeria, Ms. Naomi Nwakolo, described the company's move to become a participant of the UN Global Initiative as a pivotal step in fostering a culture of ethical business conduct, environmental stewardship, and social responsibility. As one of Africa's largest crude oil producers, Nigeria's transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy will have significant implications for the country's economy and the environment. The move towards sustainability will catalyze positive change not only within Nigeria, but also on the continent and globally. The UN Global Compact, established in 2000, encourages companies worldwide to adopt responsible and sustainable policies and practices. For NEWSLINK on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Meanwhile, the Nigerian police Thursday said it has concluded an autopsy on the remains of an upcoming artist, Ireolua Aloba, popularly known as Mohbad, who died last week. The circumstances surrounding the deaths of the 27-year-old have angered Nigerians and generated debate both on social and mainstream media. Across Nigeria's southwestern state of Ekiti, Osun, Ogun, and Lagos, where he died, thousands of youths have for days taken to the street to demand answers. But as Oge Obiyerika reports, one of the demands by the protesters may soon be answered, as the police say it awaits the result of an autopsy of the exhumed body.
The police command spokesperson Benjamin Hunter wrote via X that the exhumation of the deceased was completed and the result of the autopsy is being awaited. Mohbad's body was exhumed earlier on Thursday. The investigation process followed a directive from the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, for a thorough probe into his death, with Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State asking the Department of State Services, DSS, to join the investigation. While there have been protests in some parts of the country, Thursday's procession is to further call for justice for the late singer.
I know most people that are here, we are not really his full fan. But because this guy have actually been complaining since, I think, last year or so, and nobody stood up for him, that's why it is really touching the youth.
We demand justice for the killers of Aloba Promise Mohbad. Let them bring the killers to justice.
People are calling for a change. People are calling for justice, like you don't do things and go scot-free.
To date, there are several unconfirmed stories about his death last Tuesday. The police spokesman says,
people have been coming up with different insinuations that, oh, I know what happened. It's not what they said happened. It's not this, it's not that. I've been seeing stories about injection and all of that. So we just want people who have genuine information to come forward. Confidentiality is assured so that the investigation will be speedy and we'll get what we want.
Until the result of the autopsy is made public, protesters believe that Mohbad's former record label boss, Naira Marley, his father and close associates stand accused of committing murder. Late Thursday, famous Nigerian musicians joined the candlelight procession in honor of the late Afrobeat star Mohbad in the Victoria Island area of Lagos. A similar event also took place in Peckham Square in Peckham, the UK.
Ogiobi Erika filed that report.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest focus this afternoon is on our earlier report on the National Council for the Safeguard of the Homeland, CNSP's intention to create an anti-graft agency to fight against corruption. The information was communicated in a press release on the state media. This commission will, among other tasks, trace and seize public properties and funds illegally acquired by officials of the former regime of ousted President Mohamed Bazoum. This development has sparked public debate where some think it's a step in the right direction. Others believe its implementation is not feasible. Joining us on this is Morgan Asogba, an international relations expert.
This decision highlights once again one of the main reasons why we are having this coup d'etat in the various countries. This is addressing directly the issue of governance. It means the people are definitely justifying their attitude, their decision to take control of their countries through force by the fact that the countries seems or appears to be not governed the way it should be. They believe that it is not well governed. And corruption is one of the key elements that affects the fairness and the productivity of every single governance body. So fighting corruption for them, as they are making this decision, it highlights one of the key reasons why they are actually taking over power. But when you look at it deeper and you look at the issue of transition, because this is questionable, will the transition period allow them to efficiently tackle the issue of corruption, or how are they going to handle this very decision in order to make it more of a productive step than, let's say, a biased step?
Right. So like you said, how are they going to carry out this operation? And many experts like yourself have also argued that this, they think, might not be feasible, especially looking at how the Economic Community of West African States want them out of the picture so that Bazoum can be reinstated. So are you of the same view?
The feasibility depends on the real fact on the ground. But if you look at it from, let's say, a subjective way, it is definitely feasible. And this is always because of the key actors that are concerned. If you have to look at it from the angle of the junta and considering them as being the best people to decide the fate of Niger, and considering the fact that they might have taken into consideration the wish of the people, we can say that it is feasible. But if you want to look at this from a very objective point of view, the feasibility is not as high as it should be for the decision to be productive, especially when you look at the context whereby they are in as a transitional government, not a government that comes actually to govern.
Right. Bazoum has filed an appeal to the ECOWAS Court of Justice to reinstate him. So do you think the military junta would be willing to reinstate Bazoum?
There is no way this is going to happen when you look at the current situation on the ground. There is no way this is going to happen practically. It could happen legally, meaning that we could have the court deciding that the military leadership should reinstate President Bazoum. That will be, let's say, a decision. But the implementation of that decision will be highly problematic when you look at the current situation. So it could also happen by the use of force, but when you look at the key players currently and the dynamic, even that use of force is probably no more an option on the table as it has been when this whole situation started.
Morgan Asogba is an international relations expert. Up next is Sports Update with Sankule Janko.
Hello there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Morocco is the highest ranked team in Africa according to the latest FIFA World Rankings issued on Thursday. The North African country has also moved 2 places up to position 13 in the world, remaining the leading African nation in the rankings. Reigning African champions Senegal maintained their second place in the continent. However, the Teranga Lions dropped 2 places from position 18 to 20 in the world rankings. The Teranga Lions' downward spiral in the world rankings could be attributed to their recent 1-0 defeat by Algeria. Meanwhile, Tunisia sit in 3rd place behind Senegal and Morocco in the African rankings. The Maghreb country moved up to position 29, while Mali and Cote d'Ivoire both moved 2 places up to 49 and 50 respectively to break into the top 50 ranked sides, replacing Greece and Paraguay. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
We have come to the end of this edition of NewsLink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Inyas Bilimu and Mustafa Sek for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via social media platforms X, formerly Twitter and Instagram at WADR News. We are on Facebook at West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. I am Tawfiq Abdul Nasir. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to NewsLink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newsmi FM 94.0, and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County. For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.
This is the Sunny Side Ride.
This is the Sunny Side Ride.
Super shows. Stay ahead with the news and great music that will keep you going. All afternoon. It's the